Well, good morning. Good morning. It's Tuesday again. Doesn't Tuesday come around quickly? And one of my favorite parts of the week is well, it's now fortnightly, is to talk to Jackson Millan, my mentor, and also the wealth guru. And he's helped so many thousands of people all around the world and around Australia to fix up their lives. Now, I say you talk about lives because if we actually have a life that's not thinking about, oh, gee whiz, I'm worried about money, or gee whiz, where I'm going to pay the next bill, we can then focus on the things we love to do. This man certainly walks his talk. He creates a model which has money working for him and his business so he can enjoy the good things in life. And my question to Jackson today was for you guys to, I'm going to pick his brains about, well, why do some people become wealthy and some people don't? So who else better to ask is Jackson Millan, the wealth guru. Welcome, mate. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, happy to be here, mate. Happy to talk about this subject. This is going to be an interesting one. So I think we're going to add some value to the people.
Look, I know some people, well, lots of people want to be wealthy. They say, I want to have financial freedom. It's a war cry, isn't it? Financial freedom. I want to be able to do the stuff for my family, and I want to be able to do this for my charity. And it's but when it comes down to goal setting, they're going to do some stuff for themselves so they can do the stuff for the family. But there's a lot of things, as we went right down to money matters number one. You have to have a plan. So a question to you from the get-go, is this wealth thing a mindset? Is it something that has to be in here before we actually start the doing? Or can we just, like in Dodgem cars, just bump into a few things and maybe hit a few golden nuggets along the way?
It all starts with the mindset, Steve. And I think that the biggest problem that people have is that society has created a definition of what financial freedom is that's complete and utter bullshit. Most people are chasing an idea of financial freedom that they have subscribed to. They've subscribed to the idea of what society has led them to believe financial freedom is supposed to mean. And I think for this reason that people, as much as money, it's taboo to talk about money, it's taboo to not to chase financial freedom. Because it's the ultimate goal, right? If you look at all of the mainstream movies that you've watched, you've look at everyone's story and the things that they talk about in terms of their successes in life, it's all about understanding and choosing a craft, becoming an expert, using that expertise to achieve success, and then basking in the glory and the fruits of your labor. Now, the end goal is for everyone financial freedom. But financial freedom doesn't mean anything. Financial freedom is just a vehicle. And what people overlook and underestimate is the importance of understanding what is it that you're actually trying to achieve? And more importantly, what does financial freedom mean to you? I think less than 10% of the population that I've ever encountered has actually defined their own idea of what financial freedom is. Because every single time I ask somebody, what are you trying to achieve? Their first response, knee-jerk reaction is, I want financial freedom. Okay, that's great. What does financial freedom mean to you? And they go silent. Oh, well, never really thought about it. I want to have freedom. Okay, what's freedom mean? I want to have flexibility. What does flexibility mean? I want to experience things. Experience what? Their definition of financial freedom is superficial. And the reality is that manufacturing financial freedom is difficult. So if you're pursuing a difficult task, something that's very hard to attain, that very few people really attain it, and you're doing so on a whim of a superficial idea that you're chasing, what's the likelihood you're going to make it happen? Slim to none.
So what I'm hearing here, mate, is that many years ago, I asked people what was important to them, and they said, was it money? Was it notoriety? Was it wealth? And the majority of people said they wanted to be happy. And then I said, oh, terrific. What makes you happy? And it was quite interesting that they couldn't actually tell me the specificity of the things that made them happy. And it was really difficult. It's like just trying to describe what an orange tastes like. It's very difficult. It's almost impossible. So I think what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong here, we need to have a mindset of what does financial freedom mean? That's just gobbledygook. That's just a cloud in the sky. What is the specificity of what you'll do, where you'll go, what you'll have, who you'll help? What does that look like? And when does it need to be done by? And having some specifics. And really, mate, what you just said is most people have this dream because they've heard it on the movies, but no one's actually asked the hard questions. I remember when you asked me the hard questions, all of it was based on business and so forth. I really struggled when I went through that model, and I really had to think hard. And you were very, very patient with me. But I'm sure you've seen it a lot of times, and you drilled me down to get some specificity, and then it actually became a reality.
Exactly. And you're not going to get it right the first time. The idea that you go, I don't know, I'm not sure, I haven't thought about it, that's the first step. And that makes sure that you're on the right step. Because the whole idea of being able to manufacture financial freedom is about having this healthy curiosity around continuing to explore the unknown and questioning the status quo. Because the problem is people don't question it, they accept it. Yes, I want financial freedom. That's what I'm going to go to set out in pursuit of. And they either stop there or they grasp some random number out of the air. I want $5 million of net wealth, or I want $400,000 a year of passive income. Okay, that's great. Why? What's the significance of that? How did you get to that number? What does that number mean to you?
So it's actually people sometimes have a wish. And I think sometimes we have to explore that wish, that possibility. The dream is always good. Don't kill the dream.
100%.
But the dream has to be combined with a plan. And
Correct.
The only way to get a plan is to have someone ask you the hard questions.
100%.
And I've actually spoken to financial planners, worked with them in the past. And personally, I just put my flag up. They didn't ask me the hard questions. They just said, put it in here, put it in there. But I must say, when it came to you, Jackson, you didn't want to talk about investment. You said, I don't want to know about that. I want to find out what does that mean to you? Those questions you were asking, the specificity, so you could then devise a plan to make the dream a reality. I think that was critical.
Exactly. And this comes down to the deference of gratification. Because at the end of the day, in order for us to manufacture financial freedom, we need to use less means than we produce. And then we need to commit those surplus means to work for us for long enough and hard enough to create financial freedom. That is just the simple formula of how financial freedom is created. The easiest way for us to do that is for us to get really clear on what financial freedom really means. And I find that more often than not, most people overestimate how much they really need to achieve financial freedom. Because we've got to realize that financial freedom isn't black or white. Financial freedom and manufacturing financial freedom is multiple shades of gray. I don't know if it's 50, but there's a few. So we want to consider, does financial freedom mean that you never work another day in your life? Does it mean that you have all of your time, and with that time, you have the ability to choose exactly where you spend it? And we've got to realize that the more time you win back, the more time you now need to fill and keep occupied with tasks and things to do, which typically means that you need more income. Or is financial freedom for you having the ability to work a 3-day week or a 4-day week, or being able to take 2 months or 3 months off a year? Because in those different scenarios, how much you need is going to be vastly different. In one scenario where you are completely free of your time and your commitments, you might need $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 a year. But on the other side, where you might only want to work 3 days a week, you might only need $80,000 a year. And how much you need to manufacturing wealth is vastly different in those scenarios.
It sounds to me as though it needs to be like reverse engineered by an expert to be able to say, well, hang on a tick, what does that mean? Okay, let's combine the dream. Now, what revenues do we need to create, passive as well as proactive, that we need to create the lifestyle and the retirement you were looking for?
Exactly right. And until we get clear on that, the likelihood of you manufacturing that financial freedom is extremely slim.
So is it important for us to mix with people with a, let's say, a wealth mindset? I find that birds of a feather do flock together, and sometimes people mix with people that have a, let's just put it in perspective, a poverty mindset or a blame mindset. And I find that sometimes when they're in that mindset, it's the people they hang out with most, they emulate. Maybe if they were hanging out with people that were positive and maybe were open to putting a plan together, that would shift their mindset to be able to give them, let's say, the possibility of creating a plan. So is it, they say that you're with the multiple of the 5 people that influence us the most.
Yeah.
Are you of that?
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I'm a big believer that rising tides lift all ships, and you need to surround yourself with people that will rise you up and bring the best out of you, as opposed to detract and hold you back. I've always been the believer that if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room, and the only thing that you're serving is your own ego.
Yeah.
So we need to consider that obviously there are certain people in our life that contribute things in different ways. And this is not about cutting off all of those people that may not necessarily serve you financially or in that abundance frame to help you manufacture financial freedom. But you need to make sure that you have certain circles of individuals that you are surrounding yourself with that can hold you to that higher standard and to get you to think abundantly and think into the future to make sure that you prepare. Because here's the thing. Financial freedom is manufactured through 3 levers. It is how much you contribute, how much risk you take, and the amount of time that you can wait. And
that's the big thing. How much time can you wait? So then we need to make sure that we're contributing more, which will shorten the time. So again, these are, as you said, they're levers. What a clever word. And if other people are doing the same thing, we are driven by peers. I mean, let's face it, if you've got successful people around us, we want to do something that's similar. I want to have that lifestyle. So having those people around us, people like yourself, other people that are doing the things that others want to do, I think is critical.
Correct. I agree. And I think it's about us understanding that those are the levers that we need to pull. And the sooner we can start pulling them, the more likely it is for us to be able to manufacture financial freedom.
So you said the word risk, and we talked about a couple of weeks ago on risk management. In the olden days, remember, we said, oh, well, look, let's put our money into this. It is high risk, but it has high return. And sometimes people did well in that. When people put money into helping people do bridging finance, where they were charging them a significant amount of money, that was a bit of a risk, but they got a high return. As you said, short time frame, maybe higher risk.
Yeah.
What's your thought on that?
Everything in life is risk versus return. And risk is always relative to the return you can expect and vice versa. And we've got to consider that risk, when we're talking about investments, can mean a couple of things. The first risk that we all consider, the first thing that our mind tends to jump to when we consider risk is the risk of loss, losing money. We've got to realize when it comes to an investment, there are only 2 ways that we can lose money. The first way is that the particular investment that we're going into loses all of its intrinsic value. So let's put that into context. You own a property, it's uninsured. There is an act of God, a big storm or a fire, and that property is completely wiped out. That asset has lost all of its intrinsic value. You've got to realize that you still own the land. So there's still some intrinsic value there. The likelihood that your investment goes down to 0 is very, very unlikely. I'd probably say close to impossible, because you still have that land value, right? If it's a unit, different story, right? Now, on the flip side, you buy shares in a company. That company goes bust and completely winds up and is declared insolvent. There is typically still some residual value. So let's say, for example, in the global financial crisis, the Lehman Brothers, was it the big collapse that happened in the global financial crisis of one of America's oldest banks? Shareholders still got cents on the dollar. So their investment didn't go down to 0, but they got something back. Those are worst case scenarios. How often do we think that happens, Steve?
I think it's very rare that those sorts of things happen. But everyone talks about them because they're catastrophic.
Correct. We always talk about the catastrophic scenarios, the worst case. The more likely case is people are unable to manage their own emotions. Market falls, they panic, they sell. And this is particularly important when we are talking about a shorter time frame. So let's say that you decided that you wanted to manufacture financial freedom in the next 12 months. The decisions that you make in the next 12 months and how you choose to invest are critically important. And the things that you invest in, the higher the risk they are, the shorter the time frame, the more magnified that risk becomes. For example, let's say that you decided that you were going to manufacture financial freedom in 12 months and you were going to choose one investment to do that. You're going to put all of your money into one investment. What's the likelihood that that's going to appreciate in 12 months' time? How do we know? We can't. It's a crystal ball. It's a leap of faith.
It's called gambling, isn't it?
It is. It's called gambling. So we've got to consider that the longer the time frame, the lesser the risk typically. Because when we look at throughout history, if we're looking at good quality investments, blue chip property, the diversified index investments, we know over the long term what the history has been. So that typically reduces our level of risk that we're taking.
Mm. The people out in the wide world that are, I think you said, contribute regularly, don't have a knee-jerk response, and then get good advice, but also get taught what to look for is the difference. I think you get great advice, but if you don't get taught what to look for, sometimes you can't see something that someone else might miss.
It's true. And the other thing here, Steve, is that financial freedom is all about us having liquidity and choice, right? Because it's in the title. We want freedom. And freedom requires us to have flexibility. Now, this is where we need to do a shuffle in terms of our wealth, and we need to reevaluate what we're chasing, because there's typically two phases that we go through when it comes to creating wealth in order to achieve financial freedom. The first phase we normally go through is our accumulation phase. This is our stock keeping phase, where we're stockpiling our wealth and we want it to snowball and build and grow. And normally when we're going through that phase, we are focusing on capital growth, because capital growth and compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. So what we want to do is we want our wealth to be compounding and snowballing to allow our net wealth to be growing over time. However, net wealth and having all of our money tied up in assets, I'm sure everyone who's listening has heard of the idea of asset rich and cash poor. This is the common issue that many people face when it comes to converting their net wealth into passive income. Because the reality is, let's say you've got all of your wealth tied up in properties, you can't sell the kitchen sink in one of your properties to raise some cash this month. So we need to work out, how do we then start to make that transition? How do we then start building passive income that we're going to get a check coming in month after month or quarter after quarter, irrespective of what happens with our asset value?
So when it comes to creating this passive, it's a very widely asked about word, isn't it? I want to create passive income. Well, it comes back down to what we said, I think about 4 or 5 weeks ago in Money Matters. We've got to have a specific plan, but you then be able to have the flexibility to, let's say, change the plan when things change. And I think it was really important for people to understand that whether it's in super, whether it's in property, whether it's in shares, they always have to have, I think one question you asked, how long do you want this to take? Now, if we have a diverse component of high risk, low risk, usually the blue chips are a slow burner because they're going to continually grow. So it's very important that people move swiftly to start their wealth plan, because if they leave it too, let's say, long, and they've got a shorter period of time, you're going to have to up the ante in the risk components. And that's usually, as you said earlier, it gives gambling.
100%. Exactly. And it gets to a point where the risk versus return just doesn't add up. So for that reason, the sooner we start, the better the outcome we can create.
Yeah. So if we look at this wealth mindset, to get involved with the people, and I know that you've got some Facebook groups where people are talking quite openly about their finance, and I've seen some of the comments and some of the videos you put in there are amazing. So we'll maybe get the guys to maybe hop into that that group and have a community. But
that'd be phenomenal.
I'd love to get 3 tips to sort of shift the mindset a little bit. So people that say, I want to have financial freedom, but what are 3 tips? I know we've said we've got to have what the specificity, and I don't think they better do that on their own. I think they'll need to have a chat with yourself or one of your team members to actually ask those hard questions, because I've certainly asked that question of myself and I came up with candy floss. So I think that's something they wouldn't probably be able to do on their own, but I strongly recommend that we maybe get them to have a chin wag to ask that specificity question.
100%.
What are 3 things they can start doing now? We've got the Facebook group, we get the conversation with you, but outside of that.
The first thing is getting clear on when you want financial freedom by.
Okay, time frames, right?
We need a time frame. The clearer you are on the time frame, the more sense of urgency we're going to have. Because it's all well and good for us to say, hey, we want financial freedom at some point in the future, but unless you take the time to really get clear on that, it's not going to work out for you. You're not going to have the catalyst to go and do the work that's required.
I think time is such an important criteria with any type of decision-making modality.
Correct.
I think that's a golden nugget here, guys. Work out the time where you want to have the money to what you want to do with it will be once you had a chat with some of the guys. So
Exactly.
set a time. I think that's gold.
Next thing is start small and scale your way up. Don't get scared because you say, oh, financial freedom seems so far out of reach. I may as well do nothing, because doing nothing will get you nothing. And what you will do is you'll look back in hindsight and you will regret your inaction.
So when we say small stuff, would I say that a small thing that I was taught many hundreds of years ago was to buy a book? You get an audio book now, The Richest Man in Babylon, and just listen to the story, which is a nice story, but just take a small step and actually paying yourself first, so to speak. Would that be a small step?
Or even just going and breaking the ice on starting an investment portfolio.
Good.
There's plenty of great tools out there, online software, things like that that are really reduce the barrier of entry to start investing. And many of them you can start with as little as $500.
When you say an investment portfolio, that would be in shares and so forth. Is that
It would be a diversified portfolio. There are plenty out there. I do advocate that you do get advice, but you can jump online and there's a lot of great articles out there that you can find some solutions that are out there. But it's about breaking the ice. You don't need to start with tens of thousands of dollars. The hardest step is always your first step. And we've had clients that have had $100 million businesses that we've started their portfolio with as little as $1,000. But the reality is that once we start with 1,000, then they catch the bug. And that 1,000, we then turn that up to 2,000. And then we go to 2,000 to 4,000. And we can continue to compound it, because the hardest step you'll ever take is your first one.
It's like the first property. When's the best time to buy properties? Now. When's the best one to buy? It's always the next one or the first one.
100%. That's it. So don't feel like you've missed the boat, guys. And the third thing is stop comparing yourself to others and run your own race. Because I think we've all subscribed to this idea that retirement has to happen at 60 or 65 or whatever that might be. I have no intention to retire. The idea of being fully retired, sitting at home watching daytime television gives me nightmares. And the reality is the only reason why you want to stop working is because the work that you are doing is not purposeful. So if you feel like you're not doing purposeful work, yes, use your current job or your current business as a means to an end, and then get to a point where you can find something that fills you with purpose that you can make money out of. And what that's going to do is that's going to drastically reduce the amount of wealth that you need to manufacture to achieve financial freedom.
To put that into perspective, with a very close friend of mine many years ago, did a job he liked to do, but then he decided to do exactly what you just said. Tried to start an investment portfolio. He started to do the stocks and shares and so forth, but then got some advice. This is many, many, many years ago. He worked with somebody on a regular basis, and that became his passion, but also his job. And but one of the things that my very close friend, he's like my brother, he said to me, "Don't do this alone." He said, "You should do it. I'll teach you, but get someone else outside of your friends." And that was a big rock for me. So when you're saying to the guys, go out there and you never spruik yourself, mate, I really admire you for that. But the guys, I'm going to say right now, start your investment portfolio, put your $1,000 or whatever. But for goodness sake, speak to Jackson and his team. Because I'll tell you from my perspective, I've done it on my own, read the books, made big mistake. Have a conversation with Jackson and just do it with you. I think that getting advice, but also having someone to teach you along the way, like my buddy did, he told me, this is many, many years ago, said, don't do it alone, mate. And you know what? I had to learn by the mistakes I made. I did it alone. And I went, oh my goodness, I only get burned once. But guys, I'm just going to say it again. Please, if you want to have that opportunity to do it right, you do someone that's already walking the talk and run your own race. Jackson, you always come up with the nuggets. I could speak to you for hours. I know you got a dash. You got so many things to do. I appreciate your time so much, mate. So is it okay for me to share your Facebook groups of the guys?
Please do, mate. Yep. Please feel free to jump on board. Look, once again, that first step's always the hardest one. Get educated, take action, and we're here to support. At the end of the day, it's never too late. No one will ever take away your ability to earn an income for as long as you're still you're still breathing the oxygen on this green earth. So let's help you make that ability to earn income work for you, so we can set you up for the future.
Terrific. Well, thanks, my friend. Absolutely fabulous.
Happy to help, mate.
Guys, wealth mindset. Hang out with the people that know what to do, can give you advice, work with you. I truly believe that everyone can have that financial freedom. But I think with Jackson, and he taught me, if the more specific it is, the better. And you can't ask yourself those questions. I ask people lots of questions. We specialize in an other genre. But I think someone that cares enough to have that deep dive with you and ask those questions and make it real, it gives you a big breath of fresh air. Take the opportunity, jump in the Facebook group. I'll put a link there to connect with Jackson. Take some massive action. As you said, we can spread it out over a period of time, but if you wait, you're going to have a problem because you're going to have a higher risk portfolio. We don't want that. All right, gang, I'm Dr. J. We'll see you soon. Bye for now.